What if the secret to losing weight and feeling amazing after every meal isn't just about what you're eating, but how much space you're leaving in your stomach? If you have ever struggled with bloating, fatigue, reflux, or the heavy brick in your stomach, or the feeling of like a food baby after eating, especially if you've had your gallbladder removed, this is going to speak to you. Today, we're talking about the one-third rule, an ancient principle that shows up in science, history, and even sacred texts. It's simple, it's practical, and it could be the missing key to weight loss, better digestion, and actually feeling good after every meal, especially, again, if you've had your gallbladder removed or if you just simply have digestive issues that you're working on. So stick with me because by the end of this episode, you'll know how to eat in a way that leaves you energized, light, and free. So grab your cup of herbal tea or maybe take me on a walk with you and let's explore this together.
Gallbladder gone. Now what? Let's heal from the inside out.
Welcome to Gallbladder Gone? Now what? The podcast for Christian women navigating life after gallbladder removal. Hosted by Jami McQuivey, holistic nutritionist, wife, boy mum, grandma, and a firm believer in God's design for lasting health. Did you know that over 1.2 million Americans have their gallbladders removed every year, and that the majority of them are women? Even more eye-opening is that all gallbladder issues are digestive issues. And poor digestion is at the root of up to 80% of all disease, including hormone imbalances and weight struggles. While Jami isn't a doctor and this podcast isn't medical advice, she shares real solutions rooted in research, experience, and God's Word. Let's get practical, biblical, and real, one step at a time.
Hello and welcome back. Today we are diving into one of my favorite topics, a simple little digestive hack that I learned in Ayurvedic school that can completely change the way you feel after eating any of your meals, actually. So it's called the one-third rule. So here's the cool part. The one-third rule is not just modern nutrition advice. It's actually anchored in and has a long history of being in sacred texts and now it's backed by modern science. So ancient history really talked about this, and I'll even share some stories from the people I've worked with who've put this into practice and experienced some real transformation. So let's start by taking a look at the history. So remember, I like looking at things from a history, science, and sacred texts because science is always evolving. It's changing, but if it's anchored in with something else like history or sacred texts, now we start to get some real substance. So we have some, background here. So when we're looking at history, we know that Hippocrates, known as the father of medicine, taught that moderation in eating was crucial for health. Now, we also have to remember here that they were eating real food, right? So when we're talking about the food coming up, I'm not saying that you could go out and eat pizza and donuts and all these heavy things and be like, oh, I feel amazing. But you can feel better, right? But if we actually have real food, we are going to feel better. All right, so ancient Greek athletes also they trained, interestingly enough, on smaller meals for better endurance, which is as I teach in college, I'm teaching a lot of athletes, and when they're in my class, they're shocked to hear this because they keep getting told, eat more, eat more, eat more. You need 5,000 calories. You need to work harder on eating more, and so they're kind of always tired. They sluggish. And so we get them to, I try to get all my students to just try it. There's a scripture that says, prove all things and hold fast to that which is true. So I told them, I said, try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then it doesn't work for you. But this is something that even the Roman soldiers would often eat less during campaigns to keep their body light and battle ready. So I'm not saying starve yourself or fast, but what I'm saying is that there's a sweet spot. And so we're going to kind of talk about how to find that sweet spot. So in sacred texts, in Christian sacred texts, there is also affirmation of this principle. So in Proverbs 23, we read a lot of warnings about gluttony because the fullness to excess dulls the mind and puts burdens on the body. So in the New Testament, Paul also writes in Corinthians that our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, worthy of respect, not abuse. So burdening the body is a form of abuse. So in Islam, there's a saying of the Prophet Muhammad that also says, word for word, and so this is like the third rule here. Fill 1/3 of your stomach with food, 1/3 with drink, and leave 1/3 empty for air. So if you think about this across cultures and religions, this is reoccurring wisdom. And they even have these in Japan and rules. I mean, it's all over the world. And so they're asking us to have wisdom and to leave space. And I love that idea is that this leaving space, because when there is a principle of truth, it goes across cultures, across time, and even across areas in our lives. So, how often is God also calling us to create and leave space in our lives, right? To create and leave space in relationships. And so, slowing down, creating that margin that we like to have so we can breathe and we can relax and we can restore. And so I just find this principle absolutely fascinating because of on how many levels we can actually benefit from it. So it makes me wonder too if God impressed this principle across all of these traditions, that maybe if he's saying, hey, in all these religions and across all time and maybe this is important. Maybe this is something we need to listen to. So let's look at the science now. So imagine that your stomach is a washing machine, right? So hopefully we've all done laundry. So if you cram every inch of that washing machine full of clothes and just maybe pour like 4 cups of water in it and some soap, the machine can't agitate those clothes. So the water and the soap can't move around. There's not enough of it. And the result is we get dirty clothes, we get wasted energy, and we get a whole lot of frustration. So this is exactly what happens when we overfill our stomachs. So our digestion slows down. Food ferments instead of breaking down. So we have a lot of burping, belching. We can get bacteria, parasites, um, all of those nasty things. And then you end up like hurting and even being super tired, right? But when we leave space and get the proportions correct, this is where the magic happens. First of all, you have stomach acid, right? So you've drinking enough water that you have your stomach's 1/3 full of this fluid. And your stomach acid mixes thoroughly, and the enzymes are able to break down the proteins and the carbohydrates, and the stomach muscles churn the food into a smooth liquid that's called chyme, which then can pass into the small intestines for absorption, and then the fats can be broken down for those of us with no gallbladder. This is super duper important. And so without that space, it's like the washing machine is stuck in jammed mode. It's just jammed. There's nothing. It's just going to get gross, stinky, smelly. It's not going to be clean. It's not going to be functional. So science is even showing that spacing your water before meals can improve that stomach acid concentration, which also helps that acid reflux and supports better nutrient absorption. So there's a couple of things that happen in this 1/3. So we're paying attention to 3 different things. So we're paying attention to the fluid, right? So that fluid, it is best if we hydrate before meals. So this is where we drink our 12 to 16 ounces and be finished with it about 30 minutes before you eat. I like to do that and then make sure to have a little bit extra about 30 minutes before. And what this does is this primes the stomach for the stomach lining and supports stomach acid. So we don't want to be chugging or drinking with our meals. Sipping is different. So if you had a little mug of hot water and you kind of sipped a little bit along the way, that's not a big deal. All right. Then we're talking about the second part, right? Which is the food. And so, yes, the food does matter, but not as much as it's not only the food. How's that? And so, this is where we need to chew, chew, chew. Do not underestimate chewing, right? So, when I first started doing this, I would probably chew 4 to maybe 6 times before I was swallowing. And I was challenged, like I'm going to challenge you, to try aiming for chewing a bite of food 20 to 30 times. This isn't just about taking smaller bites, it's about mixing the enzymes in your mouth to start breaking down the carbohydrates and telling your stomach, hey, we're coming, food is coming. And it helps with that mechanical. So we have mechanical breakdown and we have chemical breakdown. So when we're drinking that water and getting hydrated, we're releasing the chemicals to start breaking down. But when we're eating that food and we're really chomping down, we have the chemicals with like the enzymes, but we also have that mechanical process that we need to use. And so this is absolutely important as we're learning to digest. The third part is that air, that space, right? And so we want to eat just to about it's just a bit of like 70% full is how we're going to feel, 70 to 80% full. So when we're chewing that food, it increases the surface area of the food that allows these enzymes to work faster and reduces the stress in the stomach. So this is not about necessarily portion control, but it is a little bit. So we're eating about to 70% fullness, and then that is consistently linked scientifically with longevity. So the most famous of these right now is the blue zones, where people live the longest, including the Okinawans of Japan, who follow the saying hara hachibu, which means eat until you are 80% full. So that's practically what we're doing here. So again, across cultures, across time, this is going to be beneficial. So now, if you don't have a gallbladder, this is even more important. Or if you're suffering from digestive issues, your gallbladder stores bile, which is like a soap for fat digestion. So without it, the bile drips slowly and weakly and not in strong surges at meals. So if you eat a big, heavy meal, your system just can't keep up. And so what I've noticed that's happening is people will get their gallbladder out and they're just sent home and told eat low fat. Possibly. I wasn't even told that. Um, so that's not, there's more that needs to happen. We actually got rid of a really major organ and we need to change some things. And so making sure that we're following these principles is going to make you feel so much better. So when I worked with a woman who felt miserable after every meal once her gallbladder was gone. Like she had so much bloating and she even experienced nausea and diarrhea and fatigue. Um, and so when I was working with her, so in my program, which I hope you join, you could do a DIY or you can work 18 weeks one-on-one with me. And we started out with among other things, just practicing the 1/3 rule. And it was very challenging for her. And just because we all have these habits. And her body just finally caught up. And instead of the food just sitting there, digestion began to feel smoother and lighter for her. And she said to me, I didn't realize how much energy I was losing from just overeating. And then once she helped her stomach with the food by chewing and giving it the breathing room. She felt like the lights in her body had been turned back on. She had more energy. She was able to digest and assimilate more. And it was very powerful practice for her. So, another way to look at this is to think of your stomach as a movie theater, right? So, I used to work at the theater at night, and what would happen is people would go into the movie theater and they would eat their popcorn, they'd have their soda, they'd throw their trash, all of this stuff. So, the staff would come in and we would clean it all out and we'd get it ready for the next person or the next group, rather. And well, what happens is when we don't take the time between meals, we till follow the 1/3 rule, and then we wait until the next meal, right, to try it again. So not the snacking, not keep filling up that we fill the stomach with the 1/3 rule. What happens is then if we're just keep putting food in, it's like having a theater that never gets cleaned in between shows. And by the end, it's sticky, it's gross, there's food everywhere, there's trash everywhere, and no one's happy. And so we need to give the body time to clean itself out, that 4 to 5 hours, and then reapply that 1/3 rule. So 3 times a day, maybe only 2 times a day do we need to follow the 1/3 rule. And other than that, drink between meals. All right. Another thing, so when we're talking about the leaving space, we want to practice stopping before we're full. So, but with that chewing, that's really going to help because it'll give our brains the time to send the satiety signal saying, I'm done, we're feeling good. Um, and that will leave. So when you leave that space, it will help the brain register super fast. And the next thing that we want to do is just as we're eating and as we're giving that space is pause for gratitude. Begin meals with prayer and a deep breath. And this shifts that nervous system we've talked about from stress, which is the fight or flight, to rest and digest mode. And this will absolutely, again, help you feel lighter and lose that weight. So when we're not stuffing our face and we're not, and think, well, how about this? When we are stuffing our face and food isn't moving through and it's being stored, we have fatigue, we have weight gain, we have digestive issues. But when we start only taking what our body needs and then getting rid of the rest and allowing it to go through, we'll start to lose weight as well. And this is just such a fantastic way. This is one of the ways I keep my weight absolutely in check. So there is a faith connection. I feel that the 1/3 rule acts as a form of stewardship. So God designed our bodies with wisdom. So when we leave space in the stomach, we honor his design. Just as the Sabbath gives rest to our souls on the seventh day, the 1/3 rule gives rest to our digestion. So it also teaches us a lot about self-control. For me, it taught me that I would eat with anxiety and I would sit with that anxiety. I'm like, where am I getting this anxiety? And for some reason, I had a belief that there wasn't going to be enough or that I would be forgotten. And so as I prayed about that and relearned that I have value and that it's okay that I'm taken care of, I'm able to not scarf and fight for food. So it in Galatians, the fruit of the Spirit also can includes having self-control, and that is even at the dinner table. So eating with space is not deprivation. It's a form of freedom, and it's a freedom from heaviness and from bloating and from regret. And here's an absolutely encouraging part. The more you practice it, so in the beginning, it may be very hard. But because you're practicing it, you'll realize your body was never asking for more food. It was asking for more space. So, my friends, next time you sit down to eat, remember the 1/3 rule. 1/3 fluid or water, 1/3 food chewed very well, and 1/3 air. Think of it like that washing machine that needs to swish. So this week, try it out for yourself. Notice how your body feels when you stop a little bit earlier and when you chew a little bit longer and when you hydrate before instead of during. So ancient wisdom, modern science, and God's design all say the same thing. When we eat with space, we digest with grace. So, thank you for joining me today. And remember, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And with a little wisdom, even your meals can become a pathway to healing. So, friend, I hope I gave you a brand new perspective on just how powerful something as simple as the 1/3 rule can be for your digestion, your energy, and your overall health. So, remember, there's lots more where this came from. And remember that healing doesn't have to be complicated. It's about taking the right steps in the right order with the right support. So, if you're ready to go deeper, I've got two ways for you to jumpstart your own healing journey. One is a DIY program, it is my most popular, and it is perfect if you want the step by step plan, and you can start today at your own pace. And this is a really popular way to do it. The other way is 18-week one-on-one with me. You get the same information, but you get an added bonus 18 hours with me. And this is for you for when you're ready for full transformation and support and accountability every step of the way. So remember that all the resources, PDFs, and even the extra videos are waiting for you. Just click in the show notes. And you do not have to stay stuck in confusion. There is a clear, faith-filled, and practical path forward, and I would love to walk that journey with you. So until next time, remember you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and your body was designed to heal. Until next time, happy digesting.
If this episode encouraged you or offered practical insight, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Leaving a review, subscribing, and sharing with even one friend helps more people discover this message, and Jami is truly grateful for your support. Be sure to check the show notes for free downloads, helpful resources, and a link to join Jami's private Facebook group for extra support and community that blends practical health with biblical truth. Just a reminder, Jami isn't a doctor, so always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your health plan.